They were standing in the middle of a burning desert, staring at an impossible dream. A dream so tall, so unreal, that even the most experienced engineers quietly doubted it. Because what they were about to build wasn't just another building. It was something the world had never seen before. A structure that would pierce the sky, rise above the clouds, and challenge the limits of human imagination. But here's the twist. At the very moment construction began, everything started going wrong. The ground beneath them was weak, the heat was unbearable, the technology didn't exist yet, and the timeline completely insane. Still, they didn't stop, because failure was not an option, and what happened next changed engineering history forever. This is the story of how engineers made the impossible Burj Khalifa. Long before the first brick was laid, there was just sand, endless sand. Dubai, a city known for its ambition, wanted to do something that would shock the entire world. They didn't just want a tall building. They wanted the tallest building ever created, something so massive that people from miles away could see it touching the sky. But dreams are easy. Reality is different. Because when engineers first examined the land, they realized something terrifying. The ground wasn't strong. It wasn't made of solid rock like most skyscraper locations. Instead, it was soft, sandy soil, unstable and unpredictable. And that raised a serious question. How do you build the world's tallest structure on a foundation that can barely support its own weight? Most experts would have walked away, but these engineers didn't. Instead, they made a bold decision. They would go deeper, much deeper than anyone had ever gone before. Massive steel piles were drilled deep into the ground, over 50 meters below the surface. Not one, not 10, but nearly 200 giant pillars were pushed into the earth to hold the building. It was risky, it was expensive, but it worked. For a moment, it felt like the hardest part was over, but what nobody expected was that the real problems were just beginning. As construction started, another challenge appeared: time. The entire project had to be completed in just a few years. For something this massive, that deadline was almost impossible. Normally, buildings take years just for design, but here, design and construction had to happen at the same time. Imagine building something while still figuring out how it should look. Every day, engineers were making decisions that would affect the entire structure. One mistake and everything could collapse. But somehow, floor by floor, the tower began to rise. And then another disaster struck. The higher they built, the stronger the winds became. At extreme heights, wind pressure can twist and shake a building like a toy. If they didn't solve this, the entire tower could sway dangerously, or worse, collapse. So engineers came up with something completely new. Instead of a simple straight tower, they designed a unique shape, a structure that would confuse the wind. Each level was slightly different. Each section broke the airflow in a new way. It wasn't just architecture, it was science, carefully calculated to control nature itself. And it worked. The wind, once a deadly threat, became manageable. But then came the heat.
Dubai's heat is brutal, but inside a half-built skyscraper made of concrete and steel, it becomes unbearable. Temperatures inside the structure started reaching extreme levels, so high that workers couldn't stay inside for long. Even machines began to struggle. And there was one problem that nobody saw coming: concrete. The same material that holds buildings together started working against them. When concrete is pumped to higher floors, it can dry too quickly, and that's exactly what happened. As the tower grew taller, the concrete mixture would begin to harden before reaching the top, which meant they couldn't build higher. Everything stopped, construction slowed down, and panic started to spread, because without a solution, the project would fail. But then engineers pushed boundaries again. They created a powerful pumping system. Pipes ran from the ground all the way to the upper floors, and special concrete mixes were developed, designed to stay liquid longer. It was one of the most difficult engineering challenges ever attempted, but slowly the tower kept rising, higher and higher, until it broke another limit. At a certain height, even the cranes stopped working. Yes, the machines used to lift materials couldn't go any higher. Think about that. You're building the tallest structure in the world, and suddenly your tools are no longer enough. Materials couldn't be transported, workers couldn't operate safely. Everything reached a breaking point. For a moment, it seemed like this was the end. But here's the twist. Instead of giving up, they changed the rules. New cranes were specially designed. Workers from around the world were brought in, people who weren't afraid of extreme heights. These weren't ordinary workers. They operated hundreds of meters above the ground, where one mistake could mean death. And yet they kept going, day after day, hour after hour, until the building crossed a height no one had ever reached before. But just when everything seemed under control, another unexpected problem appeared. Glass. The building needed thousands of glass panels. These panels would cover the entire structure. But in Dubai's heat, glass became a nightmare. When installed, the temperature inside the building shot up to extreme levels, so hot that it became impossible to work inside. Everything stopped again. Months passed, deadlines slipped, and the pressure grew stronger, because without glass, the building couldn't be completed, and without a solution, all their effort would be wasted. Then a breakthrough happened. Engineers developed a special type of glass that could reflect sunlight, reduce heat, and keep the interior cooler. But it came at a cost. Each panel was extremely expensive, and thousands were needed. It was a massive financial risk, but there was no other choice, so they went ahead. Factories were set up, production began, and within months, the building finally started taking its final shape.
But the final challenge was the most dangerous of all. At the very top of the tower, a massive steel structure had to be installed. It was huge, heavy, impossible to lift. No crane in the world could carry it that high, and yet it had to be done. So engineers came up with a bold plan. Instead of lifting the structure in one piece, they broke it into smaller parts. Each part was carried separately all the way to the top, and then, high above the ground, it was assembled piece by piece. It was slow, it was risky, but it worked. And finally, after years of struggle, the tower was complete. But behind this success, there was a cost. Thousands of workers had spent years on this project, working in extreme heat, facing dangerous conditions, pushing their bodies to the limit. Many of them were far from their families, living with the hope that one day their work would mean something. And it did, because when the building was finally revealed to the world, it wasn't just a structure, it was a symbol of human determination, of what people can achieve when they refuse to give up. But emotionally, the journey left its mark. For engineers, it was more than a project. It was years of stress, pressure, and sleepless nights. Every decision carried risk. Every mistake could have ended everything. And yet, they kept going, because they believed in something bigger than themselves. Today, the Burj Khalifa stands tall, touching the sky, defying limits. But when people look at it, they only see the beauty. They don't see the struggles, the fear, the moments when everything almost failed. But maybe that's the point, because the greatest achievements in the world are never easy. They are built on challenges, on risks, on moments where giving up feels easier than continuing. And yet, someone chooses to keep going. So the next time you see something impossible, remember this story, because somewhere, someone once stood in the middle of a desert with nothing but an idea and turned it into reality. Not because it was easy, but because they refused to believe it was impossible.